The Florida scrub jay, endemic and endangered. Over the summer, I had the pleasure of meeting 4 friendly Florida scrub jays. They were quite curious indeed. I was told that if I go to this certain area, that they would be watching me, and I hiked through the scrub, and that they would land on my head. Unfortunately, I didn't get the head landing encounter that I wanted, but I did get quite close to these friendly feathered friends. So the Florida scrub jay is the only bird species that lives exclusively in Florida, where it occurs in patches and low-growing scrub oak in sandy soils. It perches tall with its long tail hanging, or you can find it boldly hopping on the ground burying acorns. This social bird forms extended family groups. The young from previous years help the parents at subsequent nests until they can get a territory of their own. Extensive development and habitat fragmentation in Florida threaten this bird's already small population, placing it on the federal endangered species list. So let's talk a little bit about conservation. The Florida scrub jay is a declining species with an estimated global breeding population of 4,000 individuals, according to Partners in Flight. They are a red watch list species with a continental concern score of 20 out of 20. This species is listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List and is federally listed as threatened in the U.S. Primary threats include habitat loss, fragmentation, and degradation due to Florida's heavy urban, suburban, and agricultural development and fire suppression. In the absence of lightning-ignited, low-intensity fires, which used to be very common in Florida, the oak scrub communities become too dense and tall to support Florida's scrub jays. Controlled burns take place in protected habitats across Florida to help support these and other species. So let's talk a little bit about range. They do not reside in the Panhandle or in extreme southeast Florida. They tend to reside more in central parts of Florida, along with central coastal areas as far southeast as West Palm and northeast as Volusia County, as far southwest as Naples, and northwest as Cedar Key. So where can you find the Florida scrub jay? Despite the Florida scrub jay's tenuous environmental position, they're still easy to find if you get to the right spot. Visit a Florida reserve such as Archbold Biological Station or Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge and keep your eyes out for a medium-sized, long-tailed blue songbird that perches high atop shrubs and pine snags or hops along the road edge in search of crickets. You can also find them at Allen and Helen Crookshank Sanctuary. So what is their habitat like? They're found only in low-growing oak scrub and scrubby flatwoods with sandy soils in Florida. Within these patches of oak scrub, they are frequently found in open areas with bare sandy patches. Species within this community include myrtle oak, archbold oak, sand live oak, Chapman oak, runner oak, rusty leonia, Florida rosemary, and at least 18 endangered or threatened plants. When the oak scrub becomes too dense or tall as a result of fire suppression, Florida scrub jays no longer use this area. According to FWC, scrub jays inhabit sand pine and xerotic oak scrub and scrubby flatwoods, which occur in some of the highest and driest areas of Florida. Ancient sandy ridges that run down the middle of the state, old sand dunes along the coast, and sandy deposits along rivers in the interior of the state. Scrub jays do best in areas that contain large quantities of oak shrubs that average 3.28 to 6.5 feet, or 1 to 2 meters. So how can you ID this bird? They're generally dull blue overall with a whitish forehead and a pale gray back and belly. Juveniles are grayer overall than adults and lack the adult's blue head. So they're pretty easy to spot, and I wouldn't say that they're easy to get confused with other birds. They look different than the regular blue jay, but their behavior is similar as the regular blue jay. So as far as behavior goes, they hop along the ground or in trees and shrubs to pick insects and harvest acorns, which it buries in the ground to eat later. Often perches on wires or exposed branches. Scrub jays hop on the ground with a certain robustness as they navigate around oak scrub. When perched in a tree or shrub, they typically sit vertically with their long tail hanging straight down. Their flights are generally short, direct, and appear somewhat labored. Florida scrub jays are reluctant to fly across non-oak scrub habitat and rarely stray from the area where they hatched. Young birds stay with parents until they can obtain a territory of their own. Until then, they help their parents feed their siblings, keep watch for predators, and defend the territory year-round. These family groups are generally composed of adults and up to 6 offspring. Within each family group, one individual acts as a sentinel looking for predators. If the sentinel spots a threat, they give a call and the rest of the family heads for cover. Florida scrub jays collect acorns during the fall and bury them throughout the territory to eat later in the year. They also relish peanuts and sometimes become habituated to humans, just like the ones that will come and land on your head in Brevard County. So as far as food goes, the Florida scrub jay hops along the ground between shrubs looking for insects, acorns, berries, and small vertebrae such as snakes, mice, and lizards. The Florida scrub jays also eat peanuts provided by people. So you shouldn't go and feed one because you're technically not supposed to feed any wildlife, so I wouldn't recommend doing this. But I don't know if you live in an area where they live, you might have peanuts at your feeder and maybe they come to your feeder. But other than that, you should never feed wildlife. And if FWC catches you, you're going to get in trouble. They eat small insects and berries whole, but carry larger prey in their bill to a perch where they proceed to pick it apart. They hold acorns in their feet, hammering them apart with their chisel-like bill. I've also seen blue jays doing the same kind of behavior. When they've had their fill of acorns, they hammer them into the sandy soil or stuff them into palm fronds or moss to eat later on in the year. They often place a leaf or a twig over that area. Perhaps it's to help them remember where they buried it. Throughout the year, they also dig up the acorns, perhaps to check on the condition of the acorns or to help them remember the location. A single Florida scrub jay may hide or bury between 6,500 and 8,000 acorns each fall. Wow, that's a lot of work. So when it comes to nesting, Florida scrub jays nest at the edge of a clump of low shrubs. They tend to place their nest in sand live oak trees, under dense greenbrier vines, and dense clumps of leaves about 3 feet above the ground. During territorial displays and courtship, males and females fly steep downward from a high perch or upward from a low perch and continue to fly in an undulating pattern while calling. Intruding males are often met with sideways hopping with a tail tiled towards the intruder. Males and females also bob up and down and point their bill upward when they detect an intruder. During courtship, a male hops in a circle around the female with his fantail tipped towards her and dragging on the ground. He also fans out his feathers around the ear and the eyebrow and sometimes gently pecks at her feet. Well, that's not very nice. Males and females form permanent monogamous bonds that are reinforced by mate feeding, especially during the nesting season. So males and females collect twigs from oaks and fibers from saw palmetto and cabbage palm. Those are the ugliest palms ever. I am sorry, but it's my least favorite kind of palm. I grew up with these all over the place and I just don't like them. I know they're important though. So yeah, it's my least favorite kind of palm though. Oak twigs make up the outer basket of the nest, and smaller twigs and palm fibers make up their inner basket. So see, these palms are important. They help with nesting material. even though they're not my favorite to look at. Both sexes help to build the nest, but the female spends more time shaping the cup of the nest. So they usually have a size of 1 to 6 eggs in their clutch, 1 to 2 broods a year. Incubation is 16 to 21 days, and the nesting period is 12 to 25 days. Their eggs generally are greenish with brownish spots concentrated near the large end. And of course, they're born naked and helpless like most chicks. So some cool facts about the scrub jay is that it is a cooperative breeder, and when the offspring leave the nest, instead of going off to raise young of their own, they stay with their parents and help them raise the next year's brood. So that's pretty cool. So it sounds like they're a close family. Jays from the Atlantic coast, central Florida, and southwestern Florida have different vocalizations despite being separated by less than 100 miles. One longtime Florida scrub jay researcher, Dr. John Fitzpatrick, has studied the jays since 1972, and he still visits Central Florida every year to study these jays. I mean, they are really cool little guys. They were pretty friendly, and they were very observant. They came really close to me. They were like right in my face, like right next to us, and they didn't seem like they were afraid of us at all. And the oldest recorded Florida scrub jay was at least 15 years old when it was recaptured and re-released during banding operations in Florida in 1990. So I hope if you haven't already, one day you get to see a Florida scrub jay. If you haven't seen one and you're not close to an area that they live, you should definitely travel to see one of these guys. It's definitely worth your time.